Welcome to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast, where we hear stories from fellow seamstresses just like you. We're able to share their success stories. We learn from wedding industry pros for the best business tips, and we get to hear from fellow sewists and crafters to hopefully inspire our creativity and our love for sewing. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're a bridal seamstress, I'd also like to invite you to check out our Bridal Seamstress business membership. We have a community of women that can testify to the power of genuine connection, friendship, vulnerability, the power of our six-figure seamstress method, and a genuine connection found in a business mentorship like this. All right, let's dive into the episode. Hey friends, welcome back to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast. Today's episode, I feel like I haven't done a solo episode in so long. Let's start with that. So I'm excited to do this. We've just been having the best guests. So I'm like, okay, we're getting all these great marketing pros and systems pros and people who can help us make our lives easier. By all means, let me take a back seat and let's get these awesome guests in. But I had a scenario recently within my local business that I wanted to share with you guys. And I think it's really important to put it into a podcast episode. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous to share it because it's kind of embarrassing. And I don't know. I went back and forth. Do I want to talk about this? I don't know. But I think it's really important because there's this false idea out there that once your business gets to a certain level or to a certain point, you are not going to have any issues. And if you do have issues, obviously it's the client's fault because you're a pro. So it's going to be the bridezilla, or it's going to be a really stressed, annoying bride, and you just have to write it off as a one-off, right? And sometimes, whatever, that can happen. But if you have talked to me about any client issue that you've had, if you've heard me ever talk about bridezillas, you know that I am a big fan of looking inward, reflecting on the scenario, and learning from it. What can we do better for the next client? Because the truth is, if your business is growing and it's strong and you're confident in your brand values, when these issues come up, it should be seen as an opportunity to grow and evolve and serve the next client better, rather than evidence that there are bad brides out there. You know what I'm saying? And the narrative is so loud that either you're working with bridezillas or you should be so ashamed of this incident and never speak of it. It's one of the other, right? So yes, it's a little embarrassing. So I hope you appreciate that I'm sharing this with you, please. But we learned really big lessons with this whole situation. So that's why I want to share it with you, because we as a team came away with literally five things that we're doing differently in our business after this particular scenario. And I'm so grateful for it. Because if it weren't for this client, we wouldn't have seen kind of just all of these little communication issues that had been slipping through the cracks. And I'm so grateful that it happened with this particular client because she was so gracious. And yeah, so I thought about, okay, how do I want to talk about this? Do I want to tell you the whole story and then go back and tell you all the things that we changed? And no, because maybe that would be better in a storytelling aspect. But then I'm going to lose track of what we actually did and how we grew. And I want you to hear in real time the changes that we made. Okay. So I also want to open by saying 100% this is not a bridezilla situation. Okay. This client was actually super gracious about everything. She had reason to be annoyed or to be kind of upset, and that's fine. And I told her that, and we have a good relationship now. She tagged us in all of her wedding photos. She's getting her gown cleaned and preserved. So all is well. Okay, so she wasn't a bridezilla, and also she is my ideal client. So I can't look at the situation and be like, oh, I just need to really hone in on my ideal client. Actually, she is my ideal client. You know what I'm saying? So take all this into consideration as you're hearing the story. And I can't wait to hear your feedback. You can share your feedback with me either in the comments of this episode, or you can shoot me an email if you're on my email list, or message me at Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress on Instagram, because we all go through this stuff. Whether or not people are actually talking about it, it's happening. Okay. And I will tell you also, within our membership, this year has been, something's in the water, and that's a different topic for a different day. But these women who I look up to and I'm like, gosh, you're the bee's knees in this business, they're still going through stuff and we are learning through it. So first thing I want you to take away from this episode is if you had a difficult client experience, you're not alone, you're not a loser, and you get to use these opportunities to grow. Okay, let me dive into the story because I know you're on the edge of your seat to hear what we did to this poor bride. Okay, so first of all, the bride, I did her sister's alterations, I think 2 years ago. I don't think it was last year. I think it was 2 years ago. The family, I don't really super know them personally, but they're pretty big in the music community around here, so we know of each other. So when her sister came in for alterations a couple of years ago, that's when we first connected the dots and we're like, oh my goodness, you know so-and-so, da-da-da. Oh, I sang here, you did this, you know. So then when little sister came this year, I was pumped because she's a vocalist, so we talked about, you know, voice teachers or the Seattle music scene. She's going to a really prestigious music school for her master's. I knew her in high school, it turns out. I played the piano for some of her high school concerts back in the day. So it was so fun. That her first appointment was probably an hour just because we were like talking so much. It was super, super fun. So here's the first lesson I learned. I kind of dropped accidentally, of course, not intentionally. I dropped this professional demeanor with her because I was like, oh my goodness, like we're best friends. So that familiarity crept in, and yes, I love being familiar with all of my clients. I love connecting with them on a personal level. That's why I got into this business because yes, I love to sew, but more importantly, I love people and I love hearing the stories. And that's what's so fun for me, right? So I took it a little too far, not consciously, but in the back of my mind, I was like, oh yeah, I know her, you know? And I feel like that can creep in so easily. We can forget that we are literally working with strangers. Okay, so let me even take this a step further. And if you are not yet implementing a contract because you haven't had an issue with a client yet, and you're like, well, I love all my clients and they're all friends of friends, or I kind of know them through somebody else. So it's like, they're not really strangers. They actually are strangers. And I can forget that. I know that you can forget that too. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of her as this friend. I'm thinking of her family as people that I know. I don't hang out with them. They're not my friends. They're very friendly, but that's kind of this subconscious label that I put on her. And so you will hear that these little details slip through the cracks because of that. So this first step might be different for you. It might be like, oh, this is an easy project, or yeah, it might be like even a friend of a family member, or, oh, I have so much time to get this project done. You fill in the blank, but there can be something subconsciously that we think about our clients, or there's a label that we give the client or the project, and that can affect every other step throughout the process. Okay. So the first fitting was amazing. Her dress was so cool. We kind of in the shop called it the Renaissance dress because it had really fun elements. It was super dramatic and it was definitely one of a kind. Just fabulous. It was borderline costumey because it was just so fab. Loved it. There were also a lot of accessories, more than the average. There were 3 accessories with this dress, okay, instead of your average, I guess, 1, a veil or whatever. So one of the accessories was very, very small. I kind of don't want to name what the accessory is. If you want to message me, you can, but I don't want it to, I don't know. I feel like then that almost, it wouldn't identify her, but I want to keep a little bit more anonymity to this issue, okay? So there was a very small accessory in this dress. She came in for her second fitting and she ended up having 4 appointments total, by the way. So her second fitting, she came in and I didn't have that tiny accessory out. And normally I have like all the things lined, you know, on the bench. So it's put on the dress and da-da-da-da-da. So she was like, oh, the fitting went great. You know, we made notes. And then she's like, oh, do you have the tiny accessory? And I was like, oh, shoot. I'm sure it's in the back. I didn't think anything of it because we have never lost anything in 10 years. You've probably heard a story of where I have misplaced something. It was that corset back. If you remember that story, it's a good one. Anyway, but nothing has ever been lost. So I knew it wasn't lost. So I was like very familiar again, very casual about this. And I was like, oh, I think it's probably in the back or something, but we'll definitely have it at your next fitting. So she was like, okay, whatever. I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a note to whatever, I'll find it when we're working on it next. So it was great. We planned her third fitting. She came back for her third fitting. And the reason why we needed a fourth is because there was like this lace. It was a beautiful A-line dress. The bottom was like a georgette fabric. And then there was like lace over the hips. It was like one piece of lace that went over her hips. I mean, it was a beautiful concept, but it was kind of tricky. We had to do a lot of sewing on the dress form and whatever. Like you care. You don't care about this part, but she needed 4 fittings, okay? So the third fitting, she comes in and she's like, oh, did you find the little accessory? And I said, no, but I know it's going to come up. And I said, I know who was working on it. And I'm pretty sure because in my mind, I'm thinking it's with her stuff. You know what I mean? I just didn't have a chance to check in with her. So I said, we're going to make a second one. So you might have 2. We'll take care of it. So if anything, you're going to have 2 of it, but it'll definitely show up. And we're just making a backup just in case. Again, it was very casual. So that was wrong. Okay. That was like completely wrong. I should have been like, after the first appointment where it wasn't on the bench, you know, with her stuff, as soon as I realized that, what I should have done is immediately taken it seriously, immediately talked with both the other seamstresses. Have you seen this? No. Okay, you were the one working on this dress, right? Okay, da, da, da. Or was it me? Or figure out who touched the dress last. And more importantly, I should have been communicating everything to the bride along the way. I should not have just waited. It's going to show up because everything shows up, right? That was way too casual and familiar. And I think it was because in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I know her and I know me. We don't lose stuff around here. Okay. I did not take it seriously. So long story short, it didn't come up. To this day, I don't know where it is. Okay. So we made a second one. I had 3 or 4 photos of the intake form. So we had a picture of it and I could remember in my head what it looked like too. So I had one of our seamstresses make the double. I approved the design of the double and I was like, okay, that's great. And if, you know, we're still going to give it some time for it to come up because I was thinking, you know how when you are missing something, it just ends up in weird places. So in the back of my mind, again, not taking it seriously enough, I was like, it's going to show up. So just in case it doesn't pop up, we'll put this on. Okay. In the middle of all of this was probably it was 100% our busiest week or 2 weeks of the year. I had just come back from a trip. I thought that I had enough dresses out the door before the trip, but turns out I didn't. So that's another lesson that I learned. I didn't even add it to the list. That's a bonus lesson, okay? If you're leaving town, make sure even more than you think is done, than you think needs to get done. It was such an overwhelming 2 weeks for me. And I know we all have those seasons where we're like, okay, this isn't forever. Let's just kind of get through it. I had obviously told Duran this story because I don't know if you guys do this, but that's what we talk about at dinner. He talks about his coworkers or what happened to so-and-so. I know the names of his coworkers and what stories are associated with their names. And then I tell him about brides. And so I told him this story and he was like, when I told him that we made the second one, or we had the second one on the back burner, he was like, that's the noise he made. And I'm like, what do you mean? What? It's the exact same thing. And it's literally made with her fabric. It's going to be fine. And he's like, you need to just call her and tell her at this point, we don't have it and we have the backup, but it's not the original. And I was like, okay, so yes, that was the plan. Did it happen? No. Why? Because I was too busy. I'm not going to tell the client that at the end of this. When I wrap this whole story up, you'll hear that I did not tell the client that, but we were just like, bam, bam, bam. We had back-to-back fittings. Things were too much. If it is too much for me to call a client about a situation like this, it means it's too much. Okay. Again, that's on me. Okay. And that wasn't even part of the things that I'm changing. Oh, yes, it was. That was number 2. Communicate the loss. Don't just assume. This is not me preaching at you. This is me talking to myself. Okay. I says, don't just assume that things are going to work out because there is a bride at stake here. So even though you are in the middle of this like busy, crazy season and it's like, woo, it's such a whirlwind. She is not. She is in the best, most exciting season of her life, planning her wedding, and she deserves that phone call because she is not one of 30 brides. She is one singular, the only bride. She is the star of the show, and she is the star of that family as well, okay? So that was a big lesson that I learned, is that just should have been communicated so far upstream, so that if she knew 4 weeks in advance, I don't know if we have this accessory. Let me show you what we made as a mock-up. This is how it's going to look on the dress. We're still actively looking, but I don't know. And I am incredibly sorry that we're even in this boat, but we're doing the best that we can to find it. And we also did the best that we could to match the original. Can you look at it now so you can just kind of get in your head, maybe this is what you'll have instead of the original? That is what I should have done. And I feel like if that would have been communicated upstream a month in advance, she would have been in a completely different emotional state, because it wouldn't have been the week of the wedding. Okay. Are you on the edge of your seat? Are you sweating with me? Because I kind of am, even as I'm retelling this. Okay. So let's move up to the week of the wedding. So she comes in for her 4th fitting, and again, didn't have the accessory. I don't even know how that, I think I just reiterated, like, yes, we have the backup one. And that was a couple weeks before the wedding. Okay. And so we were just doing some final touches on this lace, and the pickup, like the steam pickup, was going to be like 2 days before the wedding, which is pretty typical. Okay, the final fit is great. And then we keep the dress until a couple days before the wedding, and then it's going to be steamed and pressed and ready for you. What I will never do again is, and not just with this scenario, a couple other times this past summer, it wasn't like nearly as dramatic, but I had made slight changes to a dress between the final fitting and the steam pickup. I'm talking like I sewed pieces of lace on or whatever, but I had this like angst, like, oh no, what if it like doesn't fit right? And the bride doesn't have that peace of mind walking away knowing everything is completely done. Again, that happened because it was a really busy summer. Like basically it was like the month of July was just really rough. And like, it was a lot. We all put in a lot of hours, but I don't want any changes at all to the dress between the last time the bride puts it on and when she picks it up for steaming. Even though that might be like a 2-week difference, I still want everything to be completely done and finished for when she puts the dress on for the last time. So with this particular scenario, like the accessory wasn't included in that last final fitting. So it wasn't until the pickup for her steaming that the new accessory was put on. Please don't hate me. Okay, I know as I'm saying this out loud, you're like, what the heck were you doing? I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. And I did not have this attitude with the bride. Okay, don't worry. Do not worry. So the day that her sister came to pick up the dress, it was like one of those back-to-back days. Like we had like boom, 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 boom. I think we had like 7 or 8 fittings. And so the steam pickup was going to be super quick. Like it was like a 5-minute window, literally. The sister came in, I like unzipped and I was like, okay, this is pinned up this way. These are pinned up this way. This is, I was just going through how to lay it out at the venue, and I was talking really quickly, and she asked about the particular accessory and I was like, oh yeah, that's on there. And I'm doing that as I'm pinning up the skirt. And then she asks again, is that the original one? And it was like slow. It was like slow motion, because then I realized, oh my gosh, like I did this wrong. I knew in that moment, because in that moment, I hope you're sweating with me, okay? I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. No, but I did see the whole scenario flash before my eyes. And I didn't call her. I didn't tell her this is going to be a surprise to her. And this is a surprise literally to her family. And why didn't I think of this? And I was like, yeah, oh, this is the one that we made. This is the new one that we made. And then she was like, well, have you found the original? And I was like, no, but and then she goes, I think she really wants the original. And I thought, okay, we'll let her know as soon as we find it. And I should have said, it's not here. But in the moment I'm thinking, okay, I have another bride coming in, so you gotta go. So before this also, one of our seamstresses who put this accessory on the gown, I didn't even really check it. I was like, looks good. Okay, zip it up. Okay, get it out. We are overbooked today. Okay, so that was also an issue, which will come up later. And the dress left. Okay, so about an hour later, I get a call from the bride's mom. Very kind, very calm. I mean, it was direct, and I had a pit in my stomach, but she was very kind. And she said, you know, I did her alterations for the wedding a couple years ago. So she's like, this is so-and-so. We just picked up the dress. We're very unhappy with the way this particular accessory looks. It doesn't look like it's even put on correctly. And it on the hanger, it looked a certain way. On the body, it looked different. Anyway, that does not matter. And she said, we would like you to make it right. So I'll tell you what old me would have done. Immediately, I would have called her back. I probably would have started crying. I would have had no solution in the moment, but I would have just called back because I was in a panic. Okay. I did not do that. I put the phone down. I did let another seamstress hear that, who put the accessory on, so she could hear like the importance of making sure everything is absolutely symmetrical and absolutely centered, because when things are not symmetrical, brides notice. Even if I don't notice, because I was like blind with hurry. This is what happens. Okay. So we listened to the voicemail, put the phone down. We had other fittings that day, obviously. And so I waited like about an hour and a half, and then she had asked me to text her back. So I texted her back and I said, thank you so much for taking the time to call me and bringing this to my attention. I absolutely want to make this right. Can you come in at 5:15, because we'll be done with appointments and it'll just be me in here, and we'll work it out together. And she said, thank you. We will be there. Okay. So I got through the rest of the day. I don't even, the feeling where it's, okay, here we go. So they come in, so gracious immediately. Hi, thank you so much for seeing me again. And I said, excuse me, please don't thank me. Of course I want to make this right. And I think what happened was, when they first came in, they said, thank you so much. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And then the bride said, no, it's okay. So that's when I said, excuse me, it's not okay. You should not be in this position. And there are so many things, so many little things that should have been done differently to not have you in this position. So what I did immediately is I admitted every single thing that went wrong. And I know some of you listening are like, okay, that may have been a little bit much, but the alternative would have been to make an excuse, blame somebody else on the team. Excuses are so repulsive when you are in a position like this bride was in. You know what I'm saying? So immediately I was like, we should have done so many things different. And I have just this pit in my stomach that this is your experience. So let's get you back in the dress. I want to see it on you. We're going to fix it tonight. And then I said, I also will be refunding 50% of your invoice just for the inconvenience. Okay. So this accessory was, I feel, so tiny compared to the overall picture of the dress. That isn't what actually matters here, though. What matters is it's 2 days before her wedding and she is really stressed. And when you're at that 48-hour mark, it doesn't really matter what the issue is or what the disappointment is. It is huge. And we put her in that position. I put her in that position because, number one, I waited too long to take care of it. And number two, it didn't look good when it was put on the dress. So here's another thing that came up, and as the bride was putting the dress on, and it made me think of another thing I should have done differently. I don't know how you send your invoices, okay? What we do is when a bride books with us, she can either pay 100% of her package fee, which depends on the package that she chooses, or she can put down a $50 deposit. And so the $50 is like the non-refundable reservation fee. So if you don't end up working with us, you don't get that back, whatever. So this bride had paid her $50 reservation fee, and then she had chosen our $500 package, which is steaming and then cleaning and preservation afterwards. And then I think her alterations bill was like $800. It wasn't anything crazy. What had happened is her first appointment, so we require 50% of the total invoice immediately after the first appointment. So it can be like, we send the link, you can pay it in the spot, whatever. And then you should get this, you need to pay the second portion of your invoice before you pick up the dress, before your final appointment. So you can split into 2 payments, you can take care of it all at once. She chose to split up her payments, so she paid the first payment literally the day of her first appointment. And then I forgot that it was still an open invoice. I don't have it automatically send out as a reminder because sometimes we have to add things to the invoice, or they decided they don't want a bustle, or they now want a ballroom bustle, whatever. So I personally send out the link a couple weeks, 3 weeks before the final appointment so that there's room to tweak it if we need to. Well, Mary, my assistant, she's the one who caught the open invoice, and she's like, hey, this bride's coming in and there's still the second half to pay. So I sent her that link the week of the wedding. Who wants to get a bill the week of the wedding? You know? And she was really confused of like why she was getting that. And what had happened was the first portion of her bill was paid in cash. So then when she got the second portion and it didn't reflect that, there was a note, but it wasn't like, it was confusing. Okay. Admittedly, it was confusing looking. And so I had to so she emailed me and she's, can you explain this? I thought that I already paid my bill. And then I had to say, that was just the first half. And she saw that when she first saw the invoice, 3.5 months ago. She saw that in her contract, again, 3.5 months ago. That is why it's so important to send the final invoice weeks before the wedding so they're in a sound mind and they can remember stuff. So I think that was also where the angst began. I really feel like this is kind of, it all started at this point when she got the invoice, because I think in her mind, she was like, okay, now this is so expensive and they biffed my accessory, So when she was changing, and I told her mom, I'm happy to issue a 50% refund. I'll do that literally this evening. The mom was like, so can you tell me how your invoicing works? Do we just get a new invoice at every fitting? And then I hear the bride say, yeah, I already paid at the beginning. So then she was trying to reiterate, and there was some miscommunication with how the payment system works. And again, that is not an issue when brides have weeks to process that or weeks to take care of the invoice before the wedding. But again, when you're putting yourself in your client's shoes and anything is due the week of the wedding, when you have so much on your plate, it's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to feel so much money. And you're going to have this feeling of, here, am I getting duped? Are they taking advantage of me? I don't know. I feel like sometimes I have those feelings. I don't know. You want time to review and process. And I didn't give her that gift of time to think through all the things. And I really feel like that is what added to this issue. Okay. And then she ended up being in the shop for over an hour because it took a long time to absolutely perfect this accessory for her. Do I think it was a little excessive? Maybe. However, I don't know if I would have been any different if I were in her shoes. Because again, it was now less than 48 hours from her wedding, like 36 hours. And it now it's not really about the accessory. It's about like all the things that are not done in preparation for the wedding. They were hosting it on their property. So there comes a whole other to-do list. We inadvertently put her in a position of unnecessary stress and just like that did not need to happen. And there were so many, that's the thing, small things along the way that got us to this point. She ended up taking the dress. It was fine. I saw, I was totally stalking her on Instagram. The wedding was beautiful. She, like I said, was so gracious to tag us in all of her beautiful photos. Oh my goodness. She sent me like an email later to touch base about cleaning and preservation. She recently moved. So like it ended, quote unquote, fine. It was great. And I sent her refund that night, and I sent it via Venmo because I wanted her to see it immediately. And then I sent her an email and I said, hey, I know Stripe is going to take a couple days. I'd rather just have you have this tonight. Thank you. And the rest of the email was a thank you. Thank you so much for your grace. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to, fix this the best that I could. And I want you to know that moving forward, we are doing things differently for future clients. And it's because you were so honest and gracious with me that we're able to make the next experience better for brides. I said that to her in person too when they left. I think her mom absorbed it. I think she absorbed it too, but there's only so much you can absorb when you're in that crunch time, right? And then the final thing that we changed was Mary made us this awesome inventory sheet. So this is now how we go. This is how we take notes for our first appointment. Is there's a chart of everything that comes in that dress bag, every single accessory. I initial it because I'm the one who took it in, and then whoever works on the dress, you have to initial to acknowledge that each of those pieces are still in the dress bag as you're working through it. So that way, especially if there are several people working on the same dress, or I don't know how your team works or whatever, or if they're moving dresses or whatever, if the dress bag is touched, that needs to be acknowledged and initialed so that every step of the way we know exactly where everything is. So I think an alternative way to, I don't know, maybe have handled this situation or faced it, I don't know, is to have labeled the bride as being way too intense about it. And I'm saying this because I know that is a narrative out there. I know there's some listeners who you're like, dang girl, you dropped the ball. And I agree, and I deserve that. And then I think there's some listeners who might be like, oh gosh, I've worked with the similar brides and they're just so that over the top. It doesn't matter. We made a very similar one, similar accessory. It was blown out of proportion. 50% invoice is way too big of a refund. And I highly disagree, because we could, again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, you can take these scenarios and you can see yourself as a victim and have an excuse of, okay, we all make mistakes, but we tried to fix it as best we could and we're not going to lose that money or whatever. Or you can look at any opportunity, whether you are completely at fault or it's split 50-50 or the bride you feel is completely at fault. It's always a learning opportunity. And like I said earlier, our businesses should be evolving. We should be growing and reflecting and just, how do we tweak this contract, make it even better? How can we tweak our workflow to make it even safer and more efficient and make sure that all of our bases are covered and nobody slips through the cracks, whether it's an accessory or an invoice or communication or a phone call that should have happened? What are we doing to make sure this never happens again? And then I think it does two things. First of all, you're owning it. You're being honest. That's integrity. And number two, you're now not a victim to whoever randomly comes into your shop and you have to serve them and everybody's horrible. You're just trying to do your best and life is so hard. Now you have ownership and you have autonomy in this, and it's exciting because now I love that new form that Mary made for us. I feel so much more secure in that we're doing it even just this past month, and that's a gift that this bride gave us, and I'm so thankful for it. And I will say too, I journaled through this whole situation because if I went through this even just 5 years ago, I would have been, number one, way more emotional. I would have been emotional. I would not have been able to think through how to articulate to the client or articulate to her and her mom when she came back. I probably wouldn't have had good body language or open body language, or I wouldn't have been soft. Those things make such a difference. And I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful for all these other client situations that have led me to a place to be like emotionally sound for just hard weeks, so that despite how stinky the situation was, I could still show up as my best self to try to alleviate the issue or try to fix the problem, Yeah, I would not have handled this the same way, like I said, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And another reason why I kind of wanted to bring this part up about not being the victim is this weekend, my niece is in town for a friend's wedding. My niece lives in Cincinnati and she's planning her wedding out there. So we were chatting about her friend's wedding planning experience, and she went to a different seamstress and she had a rough time. The mistakes were made. It was not a good experience. And she showed me the screenshots of the communication between the bride and the seamstress. And it wasn't cute. It was like, why are you being so defensive? This bride, I'm seeing photos of the dress. This bride is asking you for you to make it right. Why are you defensive? And why are you going to be charging the bride to fix your own mistakes? What things like that happen, and they don't need to happen. Okay. So I guess if you get anything from this episode, it is, number one, you're not alone if you're making mistakes still. If you drop the ball, okay, you're human. Number two, if you work with difficult clients still, if they slip through the cracks, which let the record show this client that I just talked about, she was not a difficult client. Okay. She 100% was not. She was fabulous, actually. If you do have a difficult client that slips through the cracks, you're not a loser. Okay. It happens. We do our best to really bring in those ideal clients. And then sometimes our radar's not super crisp or clear, or it's not working, and somebody gets in there. It doesn't mean that you're a loser. Okay. And number 3, when these issues come up, you have control over how you respond. And I feel like that is what matters more than the mistakes. Any day, we're all going to still have flaws because we're human. It's how we respond to them, how we make our clients feel at the end of the day, and at the resolve of the issue. I could have also had the bride come back in and be like, okay, and just seemed so annoyed that I have to fix this because it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, I fixed it. Bye. No, we were together for 55, 60 minutes working on this thing. And it was like, the last thing I'm going to do is make you feel inconvenienced because I'm staying an extra hour because it was my fault. Our response to things says so much about our character and the integrity of the business. But more importantly, don't you want your clients to feel loved and appreciated and taken care of? Isn't that why we got into this business to begin with? Is because we love people and we love being part of the wedding day, and we get to set these clients up for success. And even if they are annoying, isn't there just a little iota of sympathy in there where we can feel like, she's annoying, but it's not about me. Again, this is not about my accessory bride, but I have worked with brides where I'm like, you're annoying, but this isn't about me. You're annoying because there's other things happening in your life related to the wedding. You're stressed. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm just going to try to make this the best experience for you and have you walk away loving your body a little bit more than you like it now because, girl, you don't like it now. Whatever. Fill in the blank. You got to dig deep sometimes for that sympathy, but that is what sets your business apart. Sometimes it's not even about the sewing, okay? It's about taking care of your clients and loving them and showing up the way that you would want someone to show up for you 48 hours before your wedding when you're stressed and sweaty, or 2 weeks before your wedding when you're like, I thought I was going to lose more weight and I'm really frustrated with myself, and I know it's not the seamstress, but I don't know how I'll still talk about this because I don't like how I feel in my dress. Dig in deep for that sympathy sometimes, and it'll be worth it. If you don't get the review, it's still worth it because you know that you sent your client off with as much love as you could give them, right? Let me know what you think about this episode. I'm actually really excited to hear from you. And if you want to DM me, I love voice memos. You can DM me if you had a rough experience this summer. I will send you sympathy and a lot of rainbow heart emojis. And maybe I'll send you some, if you want, some tips of how to move forward from it or how to make your business better for the next client. Thank you for listening. Right now it's mid-August and we are prepping for our membership to open up again in September. So the second week of September, Secrets of Bridal Seamstress membership will be open. I am pumped. I am so pumped. Our group is amazing. I just love it. We're going to have other episodes about membership stuff, but if you're ready to dig in, please join us. Okay, this past year has been awesome with the addition of our cohorts. That has been something new that has been fabulous. I'll talk more about that later, but if you have questions about the membership, let me know. You know where to find me. And then if you're on our email list, you're going to know when the cart opens. We also have a free webinar coming up in the first or second week of September. So I'll be teaching it. And then I have some friends from the membership who are going to be pitching in with their wisdom as well. So you will have the sign up link for that. And yeah, let's enter into the crazy September season together. It's going to be great. Thanks for listening, and I will see you again next week.